Call to order the City Council business meeting of September 10th, 2024. Administrator Grace, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember O'Rear.
Here.
Councilmember Roop.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Here.
Councilmember O'Shea.
Here.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Here.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Here.
Mayor Shewmaker.
Here. Please rise as you are able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 on our agenda is a proclamation for Constitution Week. Do we have our representatives from the DAR here? Thank you. I appreciate you coming, and so we'll now read out your proclamation. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 237th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Paul Shewmaker, Mayor of the City of Simpsonville, do hereby proclaim September 17 through 23, 2024 as Constitution Week in the City of Simpsonville. We ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Simpsonville to be affixed. Would you like a photo? We can just take a moment while I get a photo with these folks. Take your phone and we'll get council in the background.
You want to stand a little closer to the dais so you
Yeah.
don't walk in back there.
Is that better?
That's much better. Sure, you scoot your head though.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, both cameras?
Well, this is mine. I was going to take one.
Okay.
Roll the two.
Yeah.
Of course, of course.
I can't see Shannon. There we go. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Item 5, approval of the minutes for the August 13th, 2024 business meeting. Each member of council has received a copy of these minutes. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as written. Item 6, citizen comments. We will begin with Joyce Todd.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm Joyce Todd and I reside at 1021 Powderhorn Road in Simpsonville for not quite 2 years. I'm here today to voice a loud music complaint. The source of my complaint is a CCNB amphitheater. Okay, I'll go ahead and dial it up voice. Thank you. Unfortunately, and much to me and my husband's chagrin, it was not disclosed to us that our beautiful retirement now from the amphitheater, in which we soon learned was active all the way from April through October. That's 7 months out of 12. Our windows rumble, our TV, and our personal conversations compete with the loud pounding music, bass, and the screeching from the guitars. No matter that we spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars making our backyard a retiree sanctuary, as both of us have worked over 35 years in service to deserve this treat. After numerous phone calls and emails, I finally spoke with Mr. Bianco, who, as you know, is part of the management team of TRZ, and they manage the acts and other logistics for the CCNB theater. He informed me that the builders do not have to disclose living near or next to the amphitheater, and also that each act has their own decibel meter amount, although they cannot exceed 98 decibels. In the midst of all this information, all I could ask myself was why? Why would this beautiful, quaint town of Simpsonville, full of homegrown residents, allow this? And of course, the only answer I could come up with, the only reasonable answer I could come up with was revenue, quote unquote, money, and maybe some good intentions. We know money attracts money. That's a fact. Another fact is that the city of Simpsonville owns the amphitheater. So I come today to you to encourage, to ask very strongly, to revamp 4 current issues. One is to lower the decibels, especially with the rock music. Number 2, full disclosure to current homeowners or those in the future that are buying or building near the amphitheater. Also, number 3, no weekday. The weekdays are hardly for children to listen to that music. And the words that come through that you can hear very clearly are not what a child should hear. And especially on Sunday. Number 4, I would like more diversity in the performers. For example, some jazz music maybe. This is all that I came for today, and I appreciate the time that you were giving me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. I apologize, my light system has decided to quit, but the sound still works. Next up is Marco Sprenger.
Should I give this to her?
Yes.
That's one for each of you.
We'll let you wait until we get them passed out. Okay. All right, we each have that. Mr. Sprenger, if you will state your name and address, and then your time will begin.
Marco Sprenger, 404 Alder. All right, got 3 minutes. This is I need way more than 3 minutes to do this, but pretty much what happened is I live on 404 Alder. I built a fence that was identical to hundreds of other ones around. John Derby gave me a citation. The district attorney didn't catch the mistake either. He cited me on a code that didn't even exist. The judge then noticed the scribbleless error. He noticed the error, and he was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll just change it to the code that is suitable for what they felt the opinion was." So instead of doing the right thing and throwing it out, how it works here, he just, the judge just was like, "Yeah, we'll change it to whatever we feel like it." So then, having all that, the judge wouldn't let me enter any of my evidence into the court. He fined me $400 and gave me 120 days to remove this fence, which is identical to so many fences down the road. He said if I do not remove it in 120 days, I will have to go to jail for 30 days for building a fence on my own property. So this by itself should show you how corrupt and how much crap this is. I built a fence on my property, and there's literally up the street, there's 8 of them identical to my situation. And if you notice, when I went to the variance request meeting, they tried to tell me they were agreeing with me, but the city attorney sat in that chair right there and said, no, ignore the Constitution. You must rule on the guidelines that we have given. And that's unacceptable, because there's like 3 or 4 members that were like, this is crazy. Like, we just literally, I'm 37 years old. I don't have a record, 0 record. Now I'm a criminal. I have a criminal misdemeanor on my record because I tried to build a privacy fence for my son to enjoy, nothing else. There's no safety concern, there's no moral issue, there's not anything wrong with my fence except for the power-hungry John Derby that just wants to push his weight around. I have pictures of, if you notice, look at the pictures that you see. The first 3 is how my fence was, which is nothing wrong with it, Charleston style privacy fence. And then the last picture you see is what John Derby, the zoning guy, he's cool with. That's what he's cool with. But my fence that I put up by myself, built for my son to enjoy his backyard, is not fine. Do you see what he's cool with? That's what he's fine with. Is that acceptable? And who gives John Derby the right to make anything? He's a servant. He serves. He follows rules, and that's all he does. You people are up here to make the ordinances. And like he said that's his right to do, or else the ordinance would have to be 12,000 pages long. Well, it better be fucking 12,000 pages long then. Because
Mr. Sprenger, language, please.
I'm in America, the First Amendment's protected. I'm not doing that. Those are your rules. You can follow them. I don't have to follow them. I'm a free citizen in this country. So do not attack my First Amendment right again.
Mr. Sprenger, I will extend your time by 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you have 20 seconds remaining.
Yeah, you're going to recognize my First Amendment right and admit that this is a rule in here, and I'm going to speak the way I want to speak, and you're not going to censor me ever, period, after what y'all are doing to me on my property.
Time's up.
The lawsuit's filed and it's on the way.
Item 7A, Resolution R-2024-04, to approve funding for an impact fee study and capital improvement plan, and direct the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to Council. Councilmember O'Rear, this is your item. If you would summarize, please.
Yes, I know we talked about this in the committee of the whole, so I'll try to keep comments to some of the concerns I heard and a little base information. Since we talked, I think, what's that?
Sorry, I need a second.
But he's summarizing his item, so he can.
So, just some numbers, and then I'll get into some of the concerns. Numbers being amount of money that can be raised due to impact fees. The closest thing we have to us right now to even look at is Clinton. And I know the mayor pointed out that we have a few differences. First, their number, I spoke to the city yesterday, Clinton. They spent $38,000 on their study, $38,000 some change. So the $75,000 number thrown out in the committee of the whole, and I do notice in our resolution it was at $51,500. So that being said, their impact fees are roughly for residential single units, $4,750 per unit. Multi-units are $2,365. Commercial are $4,950. Industrial $685, and institutional $1,440. We have several properties now being developed that an impact fee would raise millions of dollars in funding. And to answer one of the questions, just a cursory glance at our budget this past year, this doesn't even count the fire truck we bought, well, there was at least $500,000 worth of general fund items that could have been alleviated by impact fee money. And that's just scratching the surface, really. Like I said, it was cursory. I didn't really dig into it. And also realize that these impact fees can be held for 3 years before they're spent. So if we collect impact fees without a direct need right then, they can be held for 3 years. We okay?
Yes, I'm just choking.
Don't even out of sight. Also, and I know, and I do appreciate the state's guidance on this, the laws, because they do make it very strict for what we can do with the money, and I appreciate that because cities shouldn't have slush funds of money, and this would certainly not be it. This would be targeted specifically for needs that are going to be incurred with the expansion and the impact development has on our city. And I think I had one council member raise an issue about expansion of homes being impacted. Expansion of homes, it's only impacted if you literally create another structure or expand your home to where it's literally a second home. It's not if you just add a bedroom, bathroom, mother-in-law suite or something. That's not impacted. And I know we had some discussion of ways to fund our impacts without an impact fee as it comes to raising whatever fees we charge now. Impact fees have been vetted legally and have weathered any legal storm over the last several years. So there will be no legal ramifications for the city if impact fees are imposed. But if we try to raise this money via raising the fees that we're imposing now, that would, I think, and I'm not an attorney, of course, could set the city up for a legal challenge, because those would have to be pretty significant raise in what we're doing now to match the numbers that even if our numbers are equivalent to Clinton's, I don't think that would pass a legal challenge if we just said, I know we're charging you X now, but we're about to quadruple that to try to make the money here. We can use impact fee money, and I know I've discussed, and I've probably done a poor job in communicating how impact fees can help not just the current new development. What we face is we have, and I know we got a couple of people in the front row that are affected by things that have happened in the past. Right now, the monies aren't there for that. What impact fees can do is offset monies in the general fund. So, like I said, the cursory glance at the budget was over $500,000 just this year. So if we fund the general fund like we normally would for the 3 departments affected by this, fire, police, and public works, Parks and Rec, we could use the $500,000 that would go, there's like a couple of police cruisers that cost $100,000+. Those can be funded by this, and then that $100,000+ can then be freed up in the general fund to pay for other things that exist, other issues that exist in the city. I don't see how we can not vote to move this resolution forward. This is something I know has been fought over for a long time, and I get the concern about, maybe we should have done this 15 years ago. Well, yeah, we should have. But there's never a bad time or a too late time to do the right thing. This is the right thing for the citizens of Simpsonville. The upfront money for the study can well be recouped very quickly, probably in the very first development that's impacted by these fees. So I just think that this is something that, I know, when we get voted in office, it's by a simple majority, but I would have to think probably 90+% of the citizens in Simpsonville would support this, because I think we all see social media, we all see and hear, get emails, phone calls, It took me 8 minutes to get here from my house, and I could walk here in almost that amount of time in a car. So those are the issues they're seeing, and they know who is doing it. They know it's the growth. They see the growth. They see the lots being cleared. This is a way to help alleviate what's going on and to have a little more confidence from our citizens in this council that we're up here doing what's in the best interest for them and the city. So I would encourage this resolution to be passed and that we move forward, because we are not, and I think I pointed this out last time, we're not an island. Fountain Inn wrote an article in the paper outlining the good idea that this is. Clinton's done it, Greer's doing it. My brother actually just sent me a link. Dorchester County, which is an absolutely booming place, they're looking at doing it now. In Greenville County Council, I wouldn't be shocked come January if this pops up there too. So we're not going to be alone in this, but this entire state's being impacted tremendously by development, and the folks that have been raised here, been here their whole lives, or lived here a long period of time. They have put their money into our system, and now we can't. This is a way to help them out, and so I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's any other concerns. I tried to answer the concerns I heard at the last meeting. But
Councilmember O'Rear, a motion is in order.
Mayor and Council, I propose we pass the resolution R.
Point of order, Councilmember, if you would put it in the form of a motion, please.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution R-2024-04 to approve funding for an impact fee study and capital improvement plan and direct the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to Council.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember O'Rear with a second from Councilmember Pinkerton. Discussion? Councilmember Pinkerton.
Yes, sir. Thanks. First of all, Administrator Gracely, where did this $51,500 number come from? It seems pretty specific.
I spoke directly with Beisler Tice, who is the firm that does all of the impact fee studies for everywhere in South Carolina. Every municipality I talk to uses them. And I explained to him what the goal was. And the fee is based on which areas you want to do the impact fees in. For example, police, fire, parks and rec. If we were going to do them in sewer, then that would be an additional cost. If we were going to do them for any other group or any other public service, that would be an additional cost as well. But what I garnered from council at the committee of the whole discussion was that it would be primarily public safety and parks and recreation.
So we would, if this passes, we'd get a report similar to the reports we got in the packet that you sent. There's like 3 studies that were sent.
Yes, Naomi Reed from the Municipal Association provided some documentation from other municipalities that I shared with you all.
Yeah, that was a lot of words. I tried to read through it, but using my background, I went last page, bottom right to get to the conclusion. And interestingly, for Fort Mill, Lexington, and even K, I guess that's how it's pronounced, said be significant growth, likely overburden existing parks, recreation facilities, fire protection service, municipal facilities, and equipment beyond current service development. Goes on to say, therefore, it's appropriate to continue with the development of impact fee programs to mitigate the proportionate share of the anticipated future deficiencies associated with new growth. So that was some good information. At least the studies that were given to us did approve or suggested to go ahead and approve impact fees. So just wanted to point that out, and I plan on voting yes to move this forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Root.
Couple questions, Administrator Grayson. Does the study have to be done in order for council to pass impact fees?
Yes, state law mandates that.
I think I asked that last time, now that I remember the answer. It just seems that, okay, that's state law, I can't argue state law, so I'll move on. It would be nice just to look at remaining cities that already did theirs and go by theirs. So if this were to pass, how long does the study take again? Because I'm getting, we talked about water studies and this. Is there a guess of how long?
This is much quicker than a stormwater study would be. But I would anticipate between 4 and 5 months to complete.
Okay. And again, and I ask this again, and I want to make sure I get this right. That study, we're paying for them to come up with the pricing scale based on our city and surrounding cities.
Based on a capital improvement plan that we would have input in.
So those numbers, council can't come up with different numbers. Do we have to abide by state law with that study's numbers?
So what the study would do is the study would relate back to a capital improvement plan, meaning how many additional police cars does the city need to support that particular development. If the study anticipates there would be an additional, 2 subdivisions netting 1,000 homes, they would tie that back to the number of patrol cars necessary to keep our coverage the same.
They also take consideration trash trucks.
Yes. Well, if sanitation is included.
Okay.
Sanitation is an enterprise fund, though, so it would not be included in this study because it's a separate enterprise fund of the city. It's not the general fund.
So could we use the impact fund monies to fund our trash?
No.
You're saying that?
No, not unless you do a separate one for sanitation, because that's funded through the public works fee, and so it's not part of the tax revenue that we generate.
Okay.
I could speak with Teichler Weiss about how much it would cost to do that study along with this one. The reason I spoke to them about police, fire, and Parks and Rec is because that's what was mentioned.
So we will know, based on a number of homes that are coming into our city, how many trash trucks that we typically need, but we can't use those funds to go to those trash trucks, in other words, correct?
Unless it's tied back to the capital improvement plan and is part of the impact fee study.
So it's another fee to use those funds to that project. It would be another study, another spend.
It's possible they could include that with this study, but it would be more than 51.5 because they would have to add another area of capital needs and tie that back to the impact of that development. They would have to take a look at our enterprise fund and how we pay for trash trucks, how many we use, what the service routes are, what the impact would be for an additional however many homes. So that would require additional study, whether it's combined with this study or added or separated and create a second study for the enterprise fund.
It just seems like our hands are more tied with this study because it's obviously the two biggest areas where it's going to affect us is, I think, besides infrastructure, is police and trash. And what I'm hearing is it's only going to cover half without spending more for it, and we don't know how much more that would be. It would be nice to know.
I would imagine 15,000 maybe. But I don't know. I would have to check with them.
And I'm going to ask you to guess on this, because we don't really have real numbers in front of us because we don't have the study. But just a guess, if we were to go the route to raise the upfront permit and licensing for these developers, just a guess. I'm not asking you to. We're not. Even though we're taping you, we're not going to hold you accountable. How much more increase? Times 3, times 4? You can't. You already know.
I don't know because I don't know. What I can tell you about fees that we currently charge is that right now we're very comparable with all of the municipalities surrounding us. Fountain Inn, Malden, Greer, we've spoken to all of those because that was brought up in the committee of the whole. Could we look at, let's make sure that we're comparable with everybody else's fees. And if we could raise those to generate more revenue to offset some of the growing pains, then could we do that? So we did. We took a look, planning staff took a look at where everybody else is. And we're pretty comparable with everybody. There's not a whole lot of room for increasing those.
So here's my concern. I'm for having developers pay more, frankly. I mean, I've been a component of that for some time. I'm not for collecting those monies and being very limited to where we can spend them.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when you look around the city, we wish we had more revenues to pay for water runoff, and these problems that we're having that have gone back long before any of us sat up here. The impact fees can't go to those studies. I understand what Councilmember O'Rear is saying is using these funds and then diverting the general fund somewhere else. But it just seems like if you raise the permits up front, we have complete control of how we spend those monies and what projects they can go for. But if you're saying we're comparable with others and we raise them too much, then we don't get any. So I'm in a conundrum here. I'm not sure. But I did ask. I'm not sure if I got all the answers because we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what we don't know. So
I will tell you that impact fees have to be tied back to that specific development. You can only use the money generated from impact fees in that development for a capital item. And it may only be a portion of that capital item that ties back directly to that development.
and I'll end with this, do other cities, have they used these impact fees to get developers to do the 100-year flood that we put in place a month ago?
So one of the things to consider is that we don't build the stormwater system. We don't build the roads. We don't build the sewer. We take the roads and the sewer into our inventory, and we're responsible in perpetuity then for maintenance of it, but we're not building that, which is why there's no sewer impact fee, there's no road impact fee. Most of the congestion is happening on SCDOT roads, so we wouldn't be able to use the money for resurfacing even if we wanted to. But when a new development comes in, the developer has paid for all of that infrastructure. So it comes to us as an asset with no liability tied to it. It's already built. We just assume ownership of it at that point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Rochette.
My position hasn't changed much since the last meeting. If anything, it's stronger. I believe that the entire purpose of impact fees is to slow or deter growth. For us in Simpsonville, I believe it's too little too late. I think 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 8 years ago would have been a great time for impact fees. But based on the map, I wish we had a copy we could show, but based on the map, thank you. Well, is this the one we did last time?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the map, there's very little white area inside Simpsonville city limits that can actually be dedicated to large subdivisions, housing projects, things like that at this point. It would be great, like I said years ago, but at this point, there's so little property to be had and developed. I don't think it's going to be worth the impact. The upfront cost concerns me. Even if we just do public safety and recreation concentrations with our study, spending $51,500 to have this study done, I think it's take too long to recoup it. Again, we can't reach back, we can't collect anything from subdivisions, developments that have been approved already or that are currently being built. So we're just looking at whatever comes our way in the future. The state regulations, again, impact fees sound great. The people that are concerned about traffic, the people that are concerned about overgrowth, they only hear the term impact fees. And it's a great political maneuver to say, I'm gonna put impact fees, I'm gonna slow this down, I'm gonna do my part, I hear the people. But I'd much rather constituents be educated about what impact fees actually are and what they can accomplish and what they can't accomplish. And so the education for me came when I found out that the state regulates impact fees and what a city actually has to go through to impose them to such a degree that, like I say, at this point for us, they're really not that useful. They're not allowed to be used for things that, we already know we have a stormwater issue. We already know we need things paved. We need some roads widened. As Administrator Gracely said, they can't go to any of that. They are specific to a development. So you can't put these impact fees in place now for developments that are coming and address issues that other developments have already caused. The state regs are just too tight for these to really be useful at this point. Lastly, I know that the county has been batting us around with impact fees as well. So my concern there is that if the city, we have a problem right now where if a development is coming close to our city limit line, they can ask to be annexed. And the average citizen says, why do you keep annexing these in? Well, if we don't, we have no control over the way that land is developed. It's not that they're gonna go, oh, we can't be annexed? Well, we just won't develop. That's not the way it works. They're going to develop and they're just going to do it under the more loose county regulations. And we have a few of those around where we said no and they developed anyway and it looks terrible and they didn't have to contribute to any of our city goals, such as walkability, connectivity, putting in entrances that allow traffic to go by, that sort of thing. By annexing, because they're going to build anyway, by annexing, we have some control over those things. That's why we annex. That's why we say yes to annexation. That's why we say yes to rezoning, because we're going to get a better build, we're going to get a better product, and hopefully get something that Simpsonville can actually be proud of. If we put impact fees in place, the likelihood is they're going to just go ahead and build in the county and not annex, so they don't have to pay the extra fees. Now we had nothing to say about that development, but we're going to feel the impact. We always feel the impact when they build on the outside of the city limits. They're going to use the roads, they're going to use the emergency services, or they're going to have an impact on the city. If the county doesn't put impact fees in, they're going to stay in the county. I believe it has to be all or nothing. I would have loved to have pushed this to maybe a year from now when the counties made their decision on impact fees. Because, it needs to be both, or we're just going to be competing with each other. Developers are going to use that, I think, as an edge, whether they're going to stay in the county or not. For all those reasons, I just don't think this is the time for impact fees. The little bit of property that we have left to develop, I think that we need to be really resourceful with. I think we need to be attracting, because it's going to get developed. It's not just going to sit there. Anybody that owns property that can sell it right now and make a profit is eventually going to, if they haven't already. It's going to be developed, and I think by putting impact fees in place, we're going to deter the better builders. I think we're going to deter people that would bring businesses we want and can actually contribute to the betterment of the city. So what we have left, I think we need to really guard carefully, and I don't think impact fees are going to push us to that goal.
Councilmember Hutchings.
Could you reiterate what these impact fees will be used for, could be used for?
So the study would include police, fire, and parks and recreation facilities.
In any of those areas, do you see a real deficit right now with the city as far as being able to handle the growth that we have at this point?
I can tell you that I think it was 2 budgets ago, we added 6 more police officers. And we did that within the budget parameters. We didn't have to look at tax increases to do that. Fire, we've been keeping up with that. I think Chief Nichols does have a request that's probably coming in the next budget cycle for some additional staff. But given the fact that we'll be finished with the municipal complex, I think we can likely accommodate that growth. We can also go to the County Finance Committee and ask for shared revenue to meet those demands because our city is about 8 square miles. The fire service area is about 31 square miles. So development in the fire service area or impacts from development in the fire service area, we can go ask the County Finance Committee and ultimately County Council to approve a millage increase to cover new equipment, operating costs for personnel. That's one thing you can't do with impact fees is pay for additional personnel. So I will say that I think we've, in the past several years, we've done a really good job of keeping our police fleet current. We're replacing cars regularly to keep it current. We were able to add fleet vehicles to accommodate the 6 new officers that we added a couple of years ago. I speak with both chiefs regularly about, are all of your equipment needs being met? Do you have the requisite number of personnel that you need? Is it affecting your response times? And so far the answer to that question has been, yes, we have what we need, and no, our response time has been unaffected for the most part. I mean, we have excellent response times. So that's what I can tell you about that. In terms of Parks and Rec, I know you've heard Director Davis say that we are at capacity on that. The only way to alleviate that problem would be to build another recreation center. And the problem in doing that is, where will you build it? There's not a lot of property left in the city that's large enough to accommodate another heritage park. Some of those needs will be met with the addition of the 2 youth football fields at City Park. I hope that'll help some. But we still are at capacity with baseball fields. So that is one area where, we're not necessarily keeping up with the growth. But the problem is finding room to build additional facilities.
And what limitations are there on the building permit fees as far as what that money can be spent for?
There are none. That money just goes into the general fund and gets budgeted on the expenditure side by policy decisions of council, funding decisions of council. When I present the budget draft to you and you look at it and, determine if that's adequate or if you need to change things around.
So, alluding back to what Councilmember O'Shea said, I think most people look at impact fees as a way of slowing growth. And I think they think that that will help improve traffic situations. But really, impact fees we don't really have any control over road improvements with that money. We don't have any way to do anything with sewer or any infrastructure that is not part of that particular development that impact fee is applied to, right? So,
yes, because they're already building the roads and they're already building the sewer.
So existing problems in the city would not be resolved by these funds, for the most part.
It's difficult to say exactly, but they are very restrictive. I'll just say that they are highly restricted in the use, and the time period in which you can hold the funds, and tie it back to that specific development for expenses. I think they have a place in communities and can be helpful in generating revenue. I can see where it works really well for Clinton. They have public utilities that probably are very strained with the growth that's coming. They've not seen the level of growth we've seen in the past several years, so there's a lot of property remaining to be developed. But, that's something the study would address more clearly than I can. I can tell you, looking at the map, and knowing what I know about development in the county around us, the unincorporated areas remaining around us, there's not a lot of room to grow. Properties that are contiguous to the city that could be annexed in.
Well, can you tell me what municipalities surrounding us currently have impact fees in place?
None currently. Fountain Inn is doing a study right now. They're in the midst of their study. Greer is initiating now in their council the same thing that you all are considering tonight, and that is to engage Beisler Tice, who seems to be the only firm around that does that work. They're going to be engaging them to do a study for Greer.
Greenville?
No.
So the way I read this resolution, basically now we're voting that we're saying we want to have impact fees implemented by this vote. And we're doing that without a real good understanding of what that's going to entail as far as funds. And another concern I have is the fact that it's going to take a lot of time of the city staff working on this situation. And I think that we've got a lot of things on the burner right now that we need to concentrate on. I'm afraid it's going to take away some of the time that we need to spend on those items doing this. I don't see the urgency of it. I know Councilmember O'Rear mentioned the county working on this plan. The United Development Ordinance probably won't go into effect until after the first of the year. That's my understanding if it's passed, and that would then change the dynamics, I think, of what we're looking at as a county, as what the county's doing and surrounding our area. I think that a lot of what we're dealing with traffic-wise is from the county development. Where we can, right now, what we can do something positive is if some of these developments are annexed into the city from the county, we can control how they develop it and develop a quality development. I think that's one thing that we can, and I think we've done a pretty good job over the last several years with that. One comes to mind that's in process right now over on Howard Drive, I believe it is, and that was a county. I think they'd have gone with the county if we hadn't done it. Probably would have not had anything like what we were able to develop with them as far as the amenities and so forth. So I think that makes a big difference in the quality of life in Simpsonville. The traffic is going to be, the development that has already occurred has created traffic. This impact fee is not going to alleviate that traffic for the most part. So what I'm looking at is with the building permit fees, we do have some latitude there to address the current issues. And we were talking about the growth and development and slowing down the growth. I asked you at the last meeting to give me some figures on how much we collected in permit fees over the last several years. 2021, 2022, we collected $1.3 million in building permit fees and $24,900 in design review fees. 22, 23, that figure dropped to $582,000, and in 23, 24, it was at 704, 984, but basically a 50% drop from that first year that I mentioned. So that tells me that growth is slowing down organically in Simpsonville for the reasons we've already mentioned. There's just not that much area left to develop, and I think the developers, if we'd have done this, as several have mentioned, 10 years ago maybe, it might have made a big difference. I don't think now it's going to, but I think we can make a difference by constructively using these building permit fees. And you mentioned that we were competitive on that as far as
Yes.
we probably don't want to look at a big increase in those
There
fees.
could be some slight increases, but as far as a doubling, no. I think that would single us out as very unfair. Those fees too need to tie back to the actual cost of the permitting, the inspections, the staff time that goes into that particular building permit, whether it's commercial or residential. You did mention the fees for design review and construction observation. That's something that we did a few years ago because we were getting substandard roads in these subdivisions because we didn't have an engineer on staff who could watch the proof roll and watch observe the construction as it was happening. And so I suggested to you all that we start using an outside consulting engineering firm. They determine the cost of their time involved in doing not only the construction observation, but on the front end, looking at the plans to make sure there are no design flaws that would create a problem for us. And so we started implementing those, and that's been very successful. That's something we do and charge for that other municipalities don't. Because Greer, for instance, has engineers on staff. Greer also has double our millage rate. So, we're trying to balance keeping taxes and fees at an appropriate level and also, protect our infrastructure at the same time.
Do any of the municipalities that we mentioned have the building permit fees instead of impact fees?
They all have building permit fees.
Okay, so that-
Yeah, that basically covers, that's universal. Counties have building permit fees, cities do. It's universal, yes, that's the best word to describe it.
When I initially looked at the impact fees, I had the impression that we could use it for some of the stormwater problems we've got, and after finding out how restrictive those fees are, we've got on the agenda, we've got an item to address a stormwater study. I think our funds would be better spent at this time to look in that direction and let this issue ride for a while. Maybe after the county does what they're going to do, we could look at it again, and maybe some of the surrounding communities might be able to tell us more about what they're doing at that point. But I just don't see the urgency of doing it right now.
I did speak with the Malden city administrator who said that they had taken a brief look at doing them and they decided not to. And based on the map, probably for some of the same reasons you described and Councilmember O'Rear described. There's just not enough left because they're bordered by Greenville and by us on this side. So there's not a lot of room for them to grow out. It really, I anticipate that we'll have redevelopment opportunities. We already are seeing that. The former Danny's Fixing and Filling, we've seen site plans for that redevelopment, and it's very exciting. So I think that's where our opportunities lie, to have redevelopment of some dilapidated properties, infill development for some of the smaller parcels that are available throughout the city. I did ask Mr. Derby to take a look at, this is a sort of separate thing, but when he gives you his economic development report next month, he is going to give you a look at available properties in the city as well for commercial development, because we've started really trying to hone in on that. So when we get requests from different commercial entities or developers, we can lead them toward where those properties are. We also just did some market research. That was part of the RFP that I shared with you all for the former library building, current fire department admin, because we anticipate hopefully a restaurant use there. And so I had that data updated so that we could share that with developers and, you know, entrepreneurs to say this is the type of retail that we think fits. And so we're combining that data with the available properties to try to help recruit the right types of businesses that fit this community and fit our retail leakage. That's a little bit off subject, sorry.
Councilmember O'Rear, I'm sorry, were you done, Councilmember? Yes, Councilmember O'Rear.
I'm kind of flabbergasted by this. We have an opportunity to alleviate the tax burden of the citizens of Simpsonville. We're just going to throw it away. It's amazing. I appreciate the comments and you know, Councilmember Hutchings. You know, I've tried to explain this offset thing. You know, if I give you $20 to go buy a certain thing at the grocery store, that alleviates your budget by $20. Then you can go buy whatever you want at the grocery store with that 20, because this 20 had to be targeted. That's what I'm talking about. Whatever we raise can be offset because we all know that this city is in good financial shape. And if we continue to fund the general fund at current levels or whatever small percentage increase every year, any money that's offset, whether it be 500,000 or 5 million, can then be used from the general fund to do other projects in the city, because the 500,000 you got from impact fees you are using for what they can be used for. But that 500,000 from the taxpayers that was going to pay for that is no longer going to have to pay for that. So then you can turn around and do other projects on city roads or things like that. That is allowable. So I don't understand why we can't understand that anytime a new development comes in, the very first time we respond to a police call out there, we are already, as a city and as taxpayers, in the red financially, because we are having to front all of those services. What impact fees do is they get the developer to front the money of what we're going to impact. So if that means another police cruiser, I know it can't be payroll, but the equipment that goes with that officer, if it means that, the developer is now paying for that up front. Now, before it gets said, will that cost be passed along to a homeowner or a buyer? Maybe, don't know. Part of it, probably. But that's when a competitive environment comes in. So what we're really doing here is we're throwing away a golden opportunity, even with limited space. I mean, wait for the next thing to go and see what kind of emails you get. Another clear cutting comes when these impact fees aren't here if we don't vote for this right now. Because there is no going back. You can't just, I mean, to Councilmember O'Shea's point, what's the difference in collecting an impact fee of whether someone will annex into the city or punitively raising other administrative fees? What's the difference? It's still the fee. But impact fees are going to be higher and much more beneficial to the taxpayer. And even Ms. Gracely pointed out, you can't just go willy-nilly with these fees and pay for anything you want to with them either. So we're literally throwing out an opportunity, from what I'm hearing, to raise money from the people who are making money off of the citizens of Simpsonville. People like the neighborhood I represent, and I grew up in Poinsettia, Westwood, where I know we have people live. These are people that don't have any way, we don't have any way of going in and saying, hey, you know, we have plenty of money set aside. These new developments have new standards, so they meet the standards. They're not going to have these problems. We're going to make them build the road correctly, where there's not potholes. We're going to make them put in the retention ponds that didn't exist when I was a little kid. We're going to make them do that. So they're not going to face the problem. So think 10, 15 years from now, when we sat here and we said, you know, we just don't have enough land anymore. You wait 10 to 15 years from now, when only money that's going to be left to pay for everything we've talked about tonight is general fund money, because we've ignored the opportunity here. And what kills me is I can't tell you in the past and present how many times I've heard this council fall back on, well, you know, everyone else thinks this is a good idea, we should do it. Why not this time? Nobody has ever said that. I mean, outside of whatever Malden did, I don't know. Clinton, greatest thing that's ever happened to them, they said. Fountain Inn's moving forward. Greer's moving forward. Places all across the state, TDK, Dorchester County's about to move forward. Why is Simpsonville an island unto itself where they just can't possibly be of any benefit to the taxpayers of Simpsonville? You annex land in, then it will be subject to an impact fee. Or you annex land in and you hit them with a punitive other fee. It's the same money. Impact fees will have the developers up front pay whatever the money is. I'll just $5,000. One 100-house neighborhood would raise $500,000 in impact fees that we can spend or hold for up to 3 years until we can use that money for that particular need. Like Councilmember Roop said, the state has done what the state's done. We have to play inside their rules. But when everybody else across this state thinks this is a great idea, except for us, I don't understand that. I just don't understand it. We're not running out of land. People want to be part of Simpsonville, and that's part of our job. We want them to want to annex into our city. But we're going to make developers, one way or the other, build things right. Because we have the regulations to do it now. They are, like I made a presentation to our planning commission years ago, to halt what was about to be approved or what the city had asked to be approved in my neighborhood that the developer had all the right in the world to do. But thankfully the city, the planning commission, listened to us and thought it's better for the people of Simpsonville that we side with the people that are paying taxes here than we side with the guy that wanted to slam 2 duplexes on 2 small lots in my neighborhood. That would have been a nightmare for this city. They saw that. So they listened to the taxpayers at that point. And I'm still a taxpayer to this day, no matter where I'm sitting, here or there. They listened to us. They alleviated the burden from the taxpayers of Simpsonville. You know, that developer sold out. They're already gone. They made their money. They're gone. And that's the point I made in that meeting. The developers will make their money, and they will leave. Now, maybe they 2-3 years from now, they pop back up in another parcel of land in Simpsonville. I don't know. But they've made their money, and they leave back behind everything we're going to have to provide: sanitation, police, fire, parks and rec. They've left all of that behind for now that new homeowner to pay taxes into, and our general fund, which is also taxpayer funded, to pay for, without asking them to go, hey, you know what? You're going to make a lot of money off of this. We're going to make sure you build it right. We want everyone to be happy here. But the only person that's going to be left to pay down the road, 10, 15 years from now, maybe we'll be here, maybe we won't, is going to be the taxpayers of this city, because we can't continue the way we're doing it now. We have an opportunity to show the taxpayers of the city of Simpsonville that we are on their side. We're not trying to stop development. We want them to be a participating partner with the taxpayers of Simpsonville. Participating meaning they get to participate financially just like we do. That's why I'm asking for this to be done, because we are here to represent the taxpayers of this city. And the best way to do that is through resolutions like this, to where the people that are here and going to make money off of our city, develop our city, add more homes, more businesses, and everything else, that they contribute up front to what we're going to have to provide them immediately. Puts us in the red for, I don't know, years probably. That's why this is important, and I appreciate all the comments, because I appreciate being able to have this conversation, and I always will appreciate the comments. But I think we cannot miss this opportunity. $51,000 is a lot of money to me. I don't care how much money I ever make. $51,000 will be a lot of money. But of all of the resolutions, ordinances, and things up there, how many of them actually generate money? This is a study that costs $51,000 that will generate money. A lot of things we discuss up here are, hey, taxpayer, we want you to pay for this. We have no way to get that money back. We can get this money back, and we can do it very quickly. I think we owe it to the people, the citizens in Simpsonville, and our taxpayers, both past, present, and future, to do this. Thanks.
Councilmember Williams.
One question that I have is, and you had brought this up a minute ago, that we want to help the taxpayers of the city, but from looking at some of the studies, it does show that the builder is going to put the impact fees on the people who are buying the properties. It's going to come out of their pockets, essentially. And then if they're already in the city and they're paying city taxes for the services of the police and the fire and all the taxes they already pay to live in the city that goes to those things, it almost seems like they might be being double taxed in a sense. Because they're having to make up for the impact fees on top of the taxes they're already paying in the city. And like was said earlier, there is not a whole lot of space. The building is already slowed down. I don't see it as being that necessary at this point in time. The regulation with the permit fees that we already have, we have more control over. As was said, the impact fees are more restrictive. And with any developments that are coming up now, I think the permit fees we've been doing well so far with everything. I don't see that. I just don't see it being necessary to add in the extra fees when the permit fees and everything else has already been able to provide substantial amount of resources that we need. So I don't, and with other studies that we're talking about coming up, I feel like are more priority. I don't see the impact fees, in my opinion, being needed right now at the moment.
Councilmember O'Shea.
So impact fees are not going to benefit the Simpsonville taxpayer on day one because the impact fees collected will still be paying somewhere between $51,500 and $75,000, depending on how many areas of the study we want to pay for. We're going to have to pay ourselves back for that study. Second of all, council's constantly being accused of greed. Well, if we add an impact fee, now we're making more money on every single thing that's developed in the city. Why did they let that big restaurant come and squeeze out the mom and pops? Why did they let more people, move here by building these complexes? Well, because they're not only getting taxes, now they're getting an impact fee. So, that reasoning doesn't quite pan out for me. Building costs are absolutely astronomical since 2020. We lived through the supply chain crisis. I'm telling you, small businesses are suffering. I'm not saying these developers that are developing housing complexes are suffering, but any new growth is going to get this impact fee, including businesses. Like I said, we want to attract people that are going to come in and renovate and give us great choices in restaurants and shopping facilities and things. We don't want to deter them going forward. I would absolutely love to sit here and say an impact fee is only going to sock it to the builders. It's only going to sock it to they're going to pay their part and alleviate taxes for the average citizen living here. Absolutely they are not. Anyone that is in business is going to pass that along. So you're going to feel it when you buy your house as if housing isn't already tapped. Affordable housing is literally something that's mentioned every week. And I don't know how that makes housing more affordable for anybody. If you rent from one of these developers, you're going to pay it in your rent. If you buy, you're going to pay it at closing. They're going to pass that along. If it's a business, I'm already paying $15, $16 for a hamburger and french fries at this point. We just don't go out anymore if they have to keep passing on more and more fees. I'd love to say they're just going to pay it and just absorb that. That's not going to happen. It's going to impact the taxpayers. You are essentially, if this passes, this will essentially impose another tax on the people that actually live here, work here, eat here, shop here. It's going to get passed on. So it's not benefiting the taxpayers. If this were 10 years ago and it was spread out evenly, I could see it. But to impose it right now when everybody's already struggling to make ends meet, I just can't see passing that on to the taxpayers. So the glittering generality of everybody else is doing it. Why isn't Simpsonville? I mean, you just heard that Malden isn't doing it, Greenville isn't doing it. There's plenty of other cities that aren't going to do it, or aren't doing it right now. So that doesn't pan out either. I'm still against. That's all.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
Can you go back to the map, please?
From the map, please, okay. Oops, went the wrong way. There we go.
Just out of curiosity, is this an official map? I mean, I took this home and looked at it, and it looked like somebody took a magic or a highlighter and highlighted in the whole thing.
Yeah, let me clarify what this map is. The blue on the left that's official Malden city limits. This is right off of GCGIS. The pinkish color in the middle is Simpsonville, and then the lighter colored blue on the right is Fountain Inn. Unfortunately, the rendition on the screen here isn't very good, but that blue does extend over into Lawrence County. The orange is, you're exactly right, Councilmember Pinkerton, that is filled in with a highlighter everywhere where there is an existing neighborhood that is already in place.
Okay, so.
And that's unincorporated
Right.
in the county.
That's the reason I asked, because we're putting together a map here that was highlighted. I do a lot of driving almost twice a week out towards Belton, and it doesn't take long to get out of the city to see acres and acres of land that one day, second, third generation is going to go, I want to develop this. Now, whether they develop in the county or not, maybe you have to set a limit to how far Simpsonville goes out. But there is a lot of property. I'm just saying, I think there's more out here than this map shows, because it doesn't go further south than what you see. You go out Fairview Road. Anyway, that's my 2 cents there. The other thing, I want to be clear on something if we voted on it tonight. This is voting for a study, correct? It's not saying that we will pass impact fees based on the study.
Correct.
Okay.
The motion is for the planning commission to make a recommendation back to council. So we would get another look at whether we want to actually impose the fees or not.
I wanted to be clear on that, because it sounded like earlier it was, well, if you pass this, this would bring on impact fees immediately.
What the study will do is it will determine some of the things that have been discussed. Is there potential for enough growth to offset imposing impact fees? What are the capital needs of the city that would be tied back to those fees? Those are the kind of things that the study would address.
But then we would get a recommendation from the planning commission to go forward.
State law requires that then the study goes to the planning commission, the study and the capital improvement plan, to make a recommendation back to council.
So at this point, if we decided to spend $51,500, we're going to get some direction from a qualified company to tell us where impact fees could be spent. And if you go through these studies, it's very intense what they get into.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure that we understand that we're just funding a study.
Mayor, can you go back to the map again? Just for clarification to address, going out 418 on Fairview Road. And I know you know this, and I apologize for even saying it, but property has to be contiguous to the city in order to be part of the city. So essentially we're blocked going down Fairview Road because of all those developments already existing in the county, just for clarification.
Okay.
Councilmember O'Rear?
I don't think, no.
Councilmember Hutchings?
Can we project this resolution on the screen, possibly?
Don't have that available on this system.
Okay, I'll just read it. The second whereas in here says, whereas, in order to implement such fees, the Simpsonville City Council is required by state law to enact a resolution directing the planning commission to review studies and to recommend an impact fee ordinance developed in accordance with the act. In the first paragraph, it says, whereas the city of Simpsonville desires to implement impact fees within its municipal limits for the purpose of funding a capital improvement plan. Councilmember Pinkerton's words a moment ago, this to me says that we're conducting a study, or authorizing a study by the planning commission to bring us back a recommendation to implement impact fees, and we would have, as a council, would have to override that recommendation. Is that correct?
That's not the way I understand it.
So-
My understanding is they would then bring a recommendation to us, whatever they recommend. They might recommend to deny, or they might recommend.
If they recommend that we implement an impact fee to council, then in order to not implement a fee, we'd have to override that.
Yes, that's correct. We have to override.
Real quick, just to clarify, and remember, first ordinance I proposed made it easier on both sides to override a denial or override an approval. So you would have the opportunity again after this, if the planning commission comes through and says, here's all the details, here's all the numbers, here's the place, everything the study says, it still comes here. And the big thing to me is you don't know until you look at it. And we don't know all the details now. We know what other people have done. And it could come back and everyone that's right now saying they don't want to vote for this be completely vindicated. Or it could be even more impactful than we ever thought it could be. And we'll be up here going, you know what, that looks magnificent. But at some point, you don't know until you look.
Well, to an earlier point, with that development I was talking about, that was in the county and they annexed into the city. City then, I think pretty much unanimously approved it after they presented a very comprehensive ID plan for that development. Had we impact fees in place at that point in time, that might not have ever left the county. Because that was, I think, 900 units, I believe it was. 900 units with an impact fee on each unit would have probably made it less desirable for them to annex into the city. Then they would have been in the county with no restrictions, most likely no ID development of any sort. So that, to me, is where we may be creating a problem that we don't currently have. And that's why I said I would like to see what the county does over the next few months with this development ordinance that they're working on, before we can make I think an intelligent decision. I'm not necessarily saying that we don't need to look at impact fees at some point, but I would like to see what the county does, because we may create an equilibrium issue here that would backfire on us. If the county doesn't do anything like what we're doing, we may actually put ourselves at a disadvantage to attracting those developments into the city, thereby creating a development that creates traffic issues, creates all kinds of infrastructure issues, and we have no control of it.
Councilmember Roop.
I want to be careful how we throw around the word tax. If we were to approve this does not in any way raise anybody's taxes. If a developer wants to pass on cost, or a business owner wants to pass on a cost, that's what they're doing. They're passing on a cost. They're not raising our taxes, and we have a right not to do business with a business owner that pushes on unnecessary cost. At the same time, you stopping doing business with a business owner that raises cost, then they'll lower their costs. So the system kind of works out itself. But when we start saying things like if we pass this, we're raising taxes. Those are inaccurate statements, and I think we need to be careful how we say things. To go to Councilmember Hutchins' comment was the 900 development that was annexed into the city a few years back. When those things come up, the homes are going to sell. If the developer wants to be in the city, he wants to be in the city. He'll pass those costs along more than likely to someone that wants to live in the city. If that's worth someone buying a home and paying a little bit more to be in the city, then who are we to get in the way of that? So I'm not sure, thinking about those scenarios we can get kind of lost in the weeds if we start thinking about those types of things. It is an argument to say, but I did want to be on record by saying this in no way raises anybody's taxes if this is passed. These are costs. If a developer or business owner wants to pass the cost along, it's up to a buyer to pay those costs or not pay those costs. Those are not taxes. So I just want to be on record to point that out.
Councilmember O'Rear?
Yeah, we can speculate about instances like the 900 home people wouldn't come into this. We don't know that. We don't know if they would have or not. But what I don't understand is how Fountain Inn or Greer wouldn't be saying the exact same stuff. If we impose impact fees, then they won't annex into Greer. Why are they moving forward with this? Why is Fountain Inn moving forward with this? Why is this a singular problem to Simpsonville? Everything we've speculated on turns out to be in the favor of the developer at this point. But to Councilmember Williams' point is, we're not double taxing anybody, and getting back to the word tax, because, and I think the mayor and I spoke about this, and Councilmember O'Shea can speak about it better than anyone else. It's not people from Simpsonville moving around Simpsonville. It's people from out of the state of South Carolina moving into Simpsonville. These are people who have not paid one dime ever into anything that's ever been done in the state of South Carolina or in the city of Simpsonville. I don't think it is an outrageous ask to ask a developer, and like Councilmember Roots pointed out, ask the developer to pay it, and if they decide to pass it on, then the people that want to move into Simpsonville and want to move into the state of South Carolina, now they have contributed to what we have been paying for, like my family, for 50 years. Some other people a lot longer than that, and they can join the club with us. But everything I hear, all the speculation seems to fall inside the developer, and I'll never fall that way. I'm nothing against development. I'm for the people of the city of Simpsonville, and this is a direct benefit to them. But getting back to it, this is a study, and the only way to know how this could work for the city and for our taxpayers is by doing the study. If the study comes out and it shows things that aren't necessarily great, or it wouldn't be beneficial, I'll be happy to eat crow. I will, really will. But to tell the taxpayers we're not even going to try, and we're not even going to take a glance at this to see what we could do, I think that's a bad look.
Councilmember Roche?
Oh,
No, she's next.
I thought you were looking at me.
I'm saying I have got you coming next after Councilmember Roche.
When a developer passes along costs for building a home, that home increases in value. The state comes in and reevaluates and imposes a higher tax. So it is a domino effect. Your neighbor sells his house for $100,000 more than he bought it for a year ago. The state comes in and reevaluates your whole neighborhood. Your taxes go up based on that one sale. So the more you pay for your home, the more you're going to pay in taxes in the future. I didn't say that this was a tax. I'm telling you that developers pass this on. Business owners will pass this on. That's the only way they can stay in business. That's what it's all about. I just wanted to be clear on that. It will have a downhill effect, and you know, that's all.
Councilmember Williams.
I wanted to say something very similar to what Councilmember Roche was saying. I'm not trying to say that. I know. I guess my wording was like a double tax, but it, you know, all the citizens of Simpsonville, they pay, you know, city taxes to live here. But what I was referring to is by looking at the studies that we were given, those fees from the impact fees on the developer is being passed along to the people who are buying the properties. So they essentially are paying those impact fees on top of, you know, we all pay for our services in our city, and so they would be doing that too. So the developers, it doesn't show that, it shows that it's gonna in fact impact the people, ultimately, more than the developers or any business that comes in. That fee is just gonna be passed along to the people. So that's what I was referring to with that, so.
Councilmember Hutchins.
I think we're getting a little bit into a semantics argument here that we're missing the point, which is pass through. If a restaurant or a hotel locates in the city of Simpsonville, we impose a hospitality and accommodations tax on that business. That business then, if you go into that restaurant and have a meal or you stay overnight, you have an add-on to your hotel bill or your restaurant bill to cover that tax. So it's a pass-through tax. You could call it a fee to do business in Simpsonville. We're talking about the same thing with impact fees. These are impact fees that we would charge a developer to do business in Simpsonville. And I've been in business for a long time. I would be very surprised if a developer did not pass that on to the end user, the buyer of the home. We have a crisis in this country in general, and probably in Simpsonville as well, of affordable housing. What we're doing here by adding cost onto a house is we're making it even more difficult for young people to buy homes. I just heard today that consumer debt is an all-time high. People have their credit cards maxed out. They can't afford groceries, much less buying a home. And what we're doing by this, with these things at this point in time, I don't think it'll accomplish what we think it will, as far as solving all the infrastructure problems, slowing down growth, whatever all those things are. But I think it will have an impact on the affordability of the housing, and that will be a tax or a fee or a imposition or some whatever word you want to call it on the homeowners in Simpsonville.
Councilmember O'Rear.
You know, a great analogy for an impact fee is the postal service, really. I mean, think about it. They got infrastructure in place. They got buildings everywhere. They got vehicles. But every time you take something new to them, guess what you do? You pay them. You pay them. And then they turn around and use part of that to continue to upgrade, to continue to buy capital buildings and everything else. And of course, guess what happens every couple of years? Price of stamps go up to pay for these things, because the inline user is who's using the service. So the inline user, the developer's not using the service. Once they hit it and they finish building and leave, they're not using the service anymore. The people that own the house are. And you know, like I pointed out with Clinton, their highest impact fee is less than $5,000. If less than $5,000 is the threshold for someone whether they can own a house or not, that's pretty tight. I mean, there's some houses that you can build, and there's not any $150,000 houses anymore. You're either in an apartment for about a $250,000 house, unless it's really old. And we're talking about all new development here. We're not talking about if someone goes and buys a house and points at your power farm. We're talking about new development. So these homes could be $400,000 houses. A $5,000 impact fee versus a $400,000 retail house, that's almost nothing. So when you're talking about passing on this, what you're doing is you're escrowing this money. You're escrowing it for the impact of the service that's going to have to be rendered to these new developments. And I don't think that's an unfair ask. But at the end of the day, like I pointed out, and Councilmember Pinkerton did, this is the study to see how this looks. we could probably speculate until tomorrow a lot of different stuff. But until the professionals dig into it and get a hold of everything and we see where things lie, we may end up thinking, this might be the greatest thing ever. Or it may not generate quite as much as we had hoped, but it's still more than worthwhile. Or maybe it does fall on what y'all are saying. And it's just like, you know what? It wouldn't be worth it. But we won't know, and our taxpayers and our citizens will not know unless we do this study.
Councilmember Rochette.
So we have to make an educated guess on what the study will produce. When I look at the map, I don't see enough land to be imposing an impact fee on. I'm going to guess that any impact is going to be minimal, and that we will have wasted somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 of taxpayer money trying to figure out whether or not we should impose a fee. I just don't think it's worth it.
All right. I spoke with the mayor of Fountain Inn and what they're working on down there, and I think it was pretty clear from the original article that they are only doing the study to consider imposing impact fees. It's not a done deal at this point. They want to see what the numbers are before they vote it up or down. The city of Fountain Inn is looking at the very strong possibility of acquiring a 60-some-odd acre parcel of land to put a sports complex on, and the way it was explained to me is that if we cannot generate enough money from the impact fees to significantly offset doing that project, probably the impact fees will not receive a favorable review by Fountain Inn City Council. So it's not done yet. In checking with Greer, I think they also land in the same category as Fountain Inn. Both of them, if you look at the map that's up here, everything to the right is out in Lawrence County and is pretty much undeveloped. They have a lot of possibility for seeing good things from an impact fee. And they also have the incentive of having a gas utility to encourage developers to come into the city. Greer has all three utilities, water, gas, light, and they are not completely surrounded like Simpsonville is, or very nearly completely surrounded like Simpsonville is. So it seems likely that Greer will possibly pass this impact fee, but I would point out that following what Greer does might not be the thing that I would be interested in doing, because they have some of the highest taxes in the county. Basically double Simpsonville's, and home values are about the same. So can you imagine paying that millage rate? Move to Greer. Regarding the offset of funds from an impact fee, using the theoretical 100-home neighborhood coming in generating $500,000, impact fees have to be proportionally spent based on the impact from that neighborhood. So the example that keeps getting thrown out is a new fire truck that costs $1 million. You can't take that $500,000 and put 100% of it towards a fire truck, because it has to be proportional. There are 8,000 homes in Simpsonville. At 100 new homes, the most you could probably put out of that would be 1%, or about $5,000, because it has to be proportional, unless you're going to put that half of that fire truck in that 100-home neighborhood. It doesn't offset quite as easily as what is being mentioned. We don't have a list of capital needs that has come across this dais that I know of, so we're going to have to create a capital improvement plan out of whole cloth. So based on that, I haven't seen the need for the impact fees just from that standpoint. In Clinton, on August 27th, a fire started in the House of Pizza in downtown Clinton, burned it to the ground. They lost 4 properties, closed 3 businesses. According to how their impact fee thing is set up, the owners of that property can come back with the exact same footprint and not have to pay a fee. But they can't make it bigger. They can't increase the impact of their business. So more or less what has happened with their impact fee is they said, oh, if you decided maybe you might want to improve downtown Clinton, it's going to cost you something. And I don't know how much that fee would be, but it brings me to my next point. I think we need to be clear, this does not just target developers. I keep hearing that thrown out. Get the developers, get the developers, get the developers. This does apply to everybody and anybody who is a property owner in the city. So that if you do anything that's within the city, any kind of redevelopment or infill, you're going to have to get off your wallet to do that. And I think we need to be clear that in this case, we're not talking about some mysterious developer who comes and goes. We're talking about people we know who live in the Greenville area. We're talking about projects like the warehouse at Bonds. Thomas Worthland and his brother started that. Burdette Central. Been a huge impact on our downtown and the vitality that we enjoy. There's currently a project that is just about to get started where Danny's Fixin' and Fillin' used to be, that is a major project that actually now is going to extend from South Main Street all the way through the block to Maple Street. And there would be an impact fee if we had this in place that would, might not stop that from happening, but it might, that impact fee is going to come out of their wallet and make it where they can spend less on making the place nicer or have better amenities. It would impact this property. The developer who has a letter of intent on this property is local. I know that family. So it's not just these people who are coming in from the outside. I think we need to be conscious of that. Just want to reiterate to council that this is the final vote on moving ahead with the study. There's not a first and second reading, so this is the final vote. Councilmember Hutchings shared the growth numbers that have been declining over the last 3 years. That's growth in the fees that come from building permits. So our building permits are going down in the city, but that's not because demand has gone down. We still have 1,000 people a month moving to Greenville County. It's there. It's just that we have had less place for this growth to go, and that's kind of why I've left the map up here. And just to reiterate, yes, I colored that in with an orange highlighter, and this I started at the bottom because the first place I thought of was Neely Farms. Neely Farms is not going to be interested in annexing into the city. So if you go to the properties that are beyond Neely Farms, we would have to figure out some way for that to be contiguous to the city of Simpsonville. There's a lot of orange that's in the way of annexing more property. It's not that it doesn't exist. There's some out there that are contiguous to Simpsonville, but not the huge amount that was there 15 years ago. So there's that. Just one more point. Sanitation, the fee that is charged for sanitation is a recurring fee, and this is where I beg to differ. A fee is a tax. You make me get off my wallet to pay the city, it's a tax. And I pay that fee every year. You can call it a fee if you want, it's a tax. I don't mind paying it. We get much better service by having sanitation through the city. But my point is that it is a recurring fee that is every year that goes towards paying for our sanitation services and setting money aside to pay for sanitation trucks as we need them. This is a recurring fee that would be also charged to new developments, whereas an impact fee is one time around, it's one and done, and then you don't get it anymore. So same thing with fire service district millage. That's a recurring tax. Millage is a tax. So anyway, that's all the points that I had to make. Are there any further comments from council? Councilmember O'Rear?
I just wanted some clarification about, I was paying attention, but I didn't catch. Fountain Inn, they're going to do a study. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but they're going to do a study because they have a particular thing in mind that they want to use what they raise impact fees for.
Right.
How is that allowable by state law?
That would be a capital improvement plan for recreation. Their plan is for
So they
a
look
new
at-
recreation facility.
Yeah, but the impact is several categories. I don't think you can just go, hey, 100% of the impact fee can go to Parks and Rec. I think it's got to go to other things too. I mean, I may be wrong here, but in other words, if their impact fee, is their impact fee study solely for Parks and Rec, no police, no fire?
I don't know the answer
So
to that.
I'm assuming they probably are. So in other words, if they collect this impact fee, they're not gonna be able to use 100% of it to go to this project, like you quoted. Maybe it's 1%. Maybe it's 10%, I don't know. But they get a pile of money, they can't just go, hey, we've already thought of a project, that's why we wanna pass these. I don't have a project. I just wanna find out via this study as to what we can possibly do. And the only way to do it is to do the study. We will all have another chance. If you want to vote no then, we'll all have another chance. Planning Commission may not even recommend it. The only thing we have to do is just agree with them. They may recommend it, then we can agree with them. But the point is you can't know. Fountain Inn's doing the study so they can know. So they can know if it's going to be enough. Now, if the study comes back, like you were saying, if the study comes back and it's not enough, then they may bail. That's what we can do here. We can do the study. And if it's not going to be in the best interest of the city at that point, or all these things that are brought up that we're speculating on are come to fruition, then heck, I'll probably vote no too. But we don't know until we get there. And to get there, we have to do the study. And that's all I ask is for you to vote to at least move forward with the study. And then whatever we find out is what we find out. That's all I got to say.
Council? Just to be clear that what is in front of us is a motion to spend $51,500 out of the general fund. This is not budgeted. So if we were to vote for this tonight, we're voting to spend $51,500, and then it comes back from the Planning Commission and we decided, it's not worth it. That's $51,500 that is just gone out of the general fund. That's a decision that Fountain Inn, I guess their council felt like that was a worthwhile decision, and that's a decision that
And that's what I'm saying. I think it's a worthwhile decision to at least see where we're at. And I would think that's fair to all parties involved in the city to at least explore this. So, all right.
Any further discussion from council? On the motion to approve Resolution R-2024-04 to approve funding for an impact fee study and capital improvement plan and direct the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to council, can I have a roll call vote, please, Administrator Gracely?
Sure. Councilmember O'Rear,
Yes.
Councilmember Root,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
No.
Councilmember O'Shea,
No.
Councilmember Pinkerton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
No.
Mayor Shewmaker.
No. That motion fails by a vote of 3 yeses to 4 noes. Council, I move for a 5-minute recess. Second from Councilmember Roche. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. We are recessed for 5 minutes. Council has returned from recess. Item 7B, allocate funding for stormwater study. Councilmember Pinkerton, will you summarize?
Yes, sir. Previously, I proposed, pass on votes to allocate $100,000, not to exceed $100,000 to stormwater study. But tonight, I'd like to amend that and propose that staff pursue a grant to pay for stormwater study of Simpsonville's existing stormwater issues and provide analysis and solution using monies from our stormwater capital fund as a local match.
Can you put that in the form of a motion, please?
I thought I just did. I propose a motion that staff pursue a grant to pay for stormwater study of Simpsonville's existing stormwater issues and provide analysis and solutions using monies from our stormwater capital fund as a local match.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Pinkerton with a second from Councilmember Roche. Discussion? Councilmember Root.
Is this, just want to make sure we understand. We're basically making a petition to get a grant that might not be available. So what if we can't get the grant? If we pass this and we don't get a grant, is us passing this dictating us getting a grant? And then if so, what type of monies is that grant? It seems like we're making a decision before we can make it. We understand what we're doing.
Well, we would need a decision of council in order to pursue the grant because there is a local match requirement. So what Councilmember Pinkerton is moving that we do is to direct city staff to pursue that grant opportunity, use our stormwater set aside that we have in our current budget to fund the local match portion of that grant so that we can do a more extensive study. Because if we did the study based on the $100,000, it wouldn't cover much territory.
So is there an estimated guess in mind of what type of monies we're talking about?
It varies. It could be $300,000 or $400,000 based on what other communities have received. We have, at this point, we've just put in our letter of interest form. We met the deadline and got that in by August 31st. And so I'm waiting for the South Carolina Emergency Management Division to then reach out to me and say, here's the application, get started, it's due on this day. He did tell me when I called him a few weeks ago that it's a fall application process. So I assume I'll get an application end of September, early October, and it would probably need to be remitted by the end of the year.
Have they hinted at all what type of grants are out there?
This is a particular grant. It's the acronym for it is BRIC. It's Building Resilience, Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. And it is the same grant that the city of Malden currently has to do their stormwater study.
And how much is that grant?
So Malden and Fountain Inn went in together to do the stormwater study, and the grant amount was $500,000. I think Malden is getting the lion's share of that because they have more area to cover, but it collectively together it's $500,000 plus their 25% match.
Councilmember Pinkerton.
And just to maybe clarify, and help me out, please, is that when my initial proposal would have come out of this year's budget, and this takes it out of this year's budget, and if we don't get a study until next year, then any monies that we would allocate towards a match would come out of next year's budget. Correct?
Correct. And I would anticipate that we would continue to fund stormwater year after year now that council has identified that as a priority.
Councilmember Hutchings.
I've already covered this with Ms. Cressley, but on the letter of interest form for the BRIC grant, we list under the project title, location, 214 East Curtis Street, Poinsettia Subdivision / Main Street. I would like to see that include Westwood, Rocky Creek, Derby Creek, the whole citywide area. So whatever we need to do to make sure that that is the way that that is worded, I'd like to have that done before I can vote for it.
Yeah, well, it will be when the grant application comes to me, it will be for both Rocky Creek and Durban Creek basins, which pretty much encapsulate most of the city.
Councilmember O'Rear.
You know, everyone knows it's my first term doing this. Malden and Fountain Inn got together for this study. Where were we in that process?
I think we touched on it at the last meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was like run away.
The direction of the city attorney was to not address stormwater because of the depth and breadth of the issue, and because we don't have a stormwater utility. We don't manage a stormwater utility.
Like an ostrich way of doing things. Stick your head in the ground.
And that, I think that has been discussed. For those of you who have lived here longer could probably fill in the blanks, but my understanding is stormwater has been discussed for at least 3 decades. There was long ago in the past, sometime in the 90s, I think, that council had appointed an ad hoc stormwater committee. That sort of fell by the wayside, and then the directive provided by the city attorney was to, since we don't have a stormwater utility, to not address the subject.
So we're now addressing, which I'm in favor of addressing, but, to address, you have to do what? Have a study, and you gotta fund a study, whether it's a matching grants or not. But I am in favor of this, just like I was in favor of the last one, because you don't know until you find out, and by state mandates, you gotta do certain things, and that's to do a study to find out. So if we're going to address this boogeyman of stormwater, we gotta figure out where the problems are first, and then figure out how we're gonna solve it from there. So I would agree with this.
Council? Councilmember Hutchins?
Just for clarification, this was the former city attorney, is that correct?
Correct. Thank you for saying that. Yes, he was city attorney for over 30 years, and that was always his legal advice to the city council, long before my time.
Councilmember O'Rear?
For further clarification, the city attorney did tell us to ignore the issue. As far as my time, stormwater, doing a study has never really been discussed. His position was due to individual property issues. His position was if you take care of one, you take care of all. And Simpsonville did not have that kind of money. They also didn't have the kind of money to do stormwater study of this capacity. We're privileged now to have a budget that's in order, 8 years later, and have the money to do this. So it's not, I just don't think it's fair to push everything off on and, well, why didn't we do it sooner? It's all kind of coming together for us right now, and I'm just really happy that we're going to move forward.
Council? On the motion to authorize staff to pursue a grant to pay for a stormwater study of Simpsonville's existing stormwater issues and provide analysis and solutions for using monies from our stormwater capital fund as a local match. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. That motion carries by a vote of 7-0. At this time, we are getting ready to go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of the proposed purchase of property by the city of Simpsonville. Upon coming out of executive session, council may reconvene the meeting and take action on matters discussed in executive session. I would anticipate that we will be coming back to chambers in a little while if you are interested in staying. So at this time, council, I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of the proposed purchase of property by the city of Simpsonville.
Second.
I have a motion from the mayor with a second from Councilmember Root. Under state law, I'm required to announce again, and by repeating this thing, that we are now retiring from chambers to go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of the proposed purchase of property by the city of Simpsonville.
Mayor, was there a vote? I heard the motion in the
I'm sorry,
second.
we did not vote. I'm sorry, we do need to vote. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. That carries by a vote of 7-0. Thank you, Administrator Grayson. So now I will state for legal purposes that City Council is retiring from chambers for the purpose of going in for a discussion of proposed purchase of property by the city of Simpsonville. Council is reconvened as we have returned from executive session. Council, I move to direct the city administrator to negotiate the potential purchase of the property located at 206 South Almond Drive.
Second.
Second from Councilmember O'Rear. So a motion from the mayor with a second from Councilmember O'Rear. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
That motion fails by a vote of 1 yes and 6 noes. Council, I move to indefinitely postpone the proposal to investigate an ordinance to establish a flooding buyout program.
Second.
I have a motion from the mayor with a second from Councilmember Root. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor to indefinitely postpone the proposal to investigate an ordinance to establish a flooding buyout program signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed signify by saying no. That motion carries by a vote of 7-0. That concludes all of our business for this evening. If there are no objections, we will stand adjourned.